Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Wednesday night live stream for Week 10 of the 2024 fantasy football season. Over the course of the next hour plus, I'm answering any and all fantasy football related questions, whether it is starter set questions going into Week 10, whether it is potential waiver wire pickups. Perhaps somebody in your league dropped a valuable player, maybe they're injured, but you can scoop them up. If you have any questions regarding trades, be sure to send that in my direction. Again, whether you do type in the live chat or send in a super chat, obviously claiming priority, make sure you include as much context as possible. Obviously, include your scoring format first and foremost, whether it is a standard half PPR or full PPR league. The more context I have in that circumstance, the easier it will be to answer. But if I have any follow-up questions, again, just type in the live chat. Like one of the first questions of the day, someone was asking me if they'd be willing to, or if it would be a good idea from Jimbo Fisher had asked, is it a good idea to pick up Khalil Herbert and potentially drop DeMarcus Robinson or Mark Andrews? My immediate question to you, Jimbo, is going to be like, if in fact you're picking up Khalil Herbert to handcuff Chase Brown, is losing DeMarcus Robinson going to immediately impact your team negatively? Like, do you have enough wide receiver depth to where you don't need to have him on roster? Or same conversation with Mark Andrews. Do you already have a stud tight end that has already passed their bye week and you're not going to have to need the services of Mark Andrews for the remainder of the season because you are starting that tight end every week? The more context you guys provide, the easier it'll be. Obviously, there's going to have to be some back and forth conversation in regards to some of these overall questions. But again, thank you guys for being here. We're talking all things fantasy. Going into Week 10, of course, it's only Wednesday, so there's a lot of context that is still remaining in regards to injuries and all that kind of situation. Today's thumbnail specifically is Nico Collins, because even though I was super excited about his return this week, unfortunately, he didn't practice today. Now, of course, tomorrow and Friday, there will be some designations, obviously, made public as to whether or not he practices. We're going to hope, in fact, he does get a full practice by Friday, because if he does at that point, he'll be fired up and ready to play for us. For those of us who have been missing him for the last month straight, obviously, we're in desperate need of wide receiver depth, and he would be able to provide that, especially in a matchup as such going against the Detroit Lions. A negative game script, a lot of passing, and of course, he's been the best receiver as of thus far this season when healthy, so hopefully he can get back and ready to go. Okay, so Jimbo, if you can tell me who your other tight end is on roster and which wide receiver, like if DeMarcus Robinson is your wide receiver 5, then sure, I'd be able to be willing to drop that and pick up Khalil Herbert just in case. But if you already have a tight end on roster that hasn't passed their bye week and you're going to need Mark Andrews to fill in for him, or DeMarcus Robinson's maybe your number 4 wide receiver and is going to be needed for an upcoming bye week, I wouldn't make any of those swaps. I would just keep them both on roster because you'll need them in the long run. All right, moving on to a question that came in from Speak Your Piece, who says, should I trade Tyreek Hill, Kyren Williams for Christian McCaffrey? I have Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I have Pickens, Sutton as my wide receivers. Running backs are Kamara, Walker, and Chubb. Okay, so you're telling me you've got a bunch of studs across the board. I'm assuming this is either a 8, 6, 4-team league, something of that exchange. Okay, so with the context provided here, I probably wouldn't make that trade still. I'd rather have Tyreek Hill and Kyren Williams rest of the way. Getting Christian McCaffrey, I don't think hurts your team to an extent to where like you are giving yourself a lesser chance to win. I still think, well, actually, technically it is. Okay, so you'd be trading 2 healthy players that have no risk associated with them for a player that has been, on the shelf for 10 weeks now, if not more, obviously 12 weeks because of the 2 weeks missed at the back end of the month of August. So he's been on the shelf for 3 months. And you were willing to trade 2 extremely valuable players in exchange for him. Based on just fantasy point totals, like we're talking about Tyreek Hill, who can be anywhere between like a 15 to 25 point player, and Kyren Williams, which is more like a 15 to 20 point player. So you're giving away that much value for one singular option. Even with all the depth you have on roster, I'd rather just keep what you have. But I don't mind the trade if you're playing in a 4-team league, because at that point you have so many all-stars across the board. It's purely just a matter of do your players score touchdowns in their given weeks? If they score touchdowns, you win the week. If they don't score touchdowns, you're going home in the playoffs at one point. And that's basically it. There's less of a decision-making process and more of a, I'm just going to start my studs every single time out, because you just have everybody that's stacked to the rim. I mean, Kamara, Walker being like your lesser options is crazy. So I wouldn't make it, but if you want to, I wouldn't blame you for doing so. Zihan sends in a question, says, in a half PPR, how big of an upgrade is Achane over K9? I think it's massive. Based on the overall workload that Achane receives within the passing game, obviously we've talked about it ad nauseum. I talked about it yesterday because, Achane was the number 2 running back on the video. He's had 6 or more receptions in the last 4 consecutive games with Tua active. The guy has just been unstoppable within that category. In a half PPR, I understand it's not as impactful, but in the long term, as long as he's getting like 6 to 8 points within that receipt, like, okay, so he's really just getting like 6 to 8 receptions, which is about 3 to 4 extra points per game, not including all the receiving yards and the receiving touchdowns that he's also accumulating there. Obviously, had a receiving touchdown in week 2 with Tua, and of course, had one most recently this last week. So there's just so much of an extra impact. Really, Achan's workload at this point makes him like Christian McCaffrey-esque. So yeah, I think it's a huge upgrade. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from Soul315 Assassin. Thank you, Soul. Soul says, in a need to full PPR situation, we have Pickens, Hill, McLaurin, and Puka. Yeah, you've got, I mean, again, if you saw earlier today's wide receiver rankings video, which of course this is the thumbnail for it, it's live on the channel right now. Pickens, Hill, McLaurin, and Puka are all in the top 18 wide receivers. In a full PPR format, I'd be very hard-pressed not to play Hill and Puka, especially considering the Los Angeles Rams secondary can't stop a wide receiver to save their life. Again, JSN went for, 180 yards and 2 touchdowns, so Hill should be able to have himself a feasting day. And then Puka Nacua, when healthy, is a machine. And of course, getting ejected out of that game last Sunday against the Seattle Seahawks just keeps him healthy, in fact. So if he's able to go through this entire week of practice with no setback, he is an automatic play. Otherwise, you then pivot. If a setback was to occur, you just pivot to McLaurin because that's just an easy automatic 15-plus points within the conversation. Thank you. Again, there's no wrong answer to your scenario, Soul Assassin, but I understand the hesitancy that kind of revolves around Hill considering his lack of production as of late. Angel Montero sends in a question. Thank you, Angel. Angel, where art thou? Question. Let's see here. I'm trying to find it in the live chat because it wasn't originally attached here. So let's see if I can find it. Angel Montero. Okay. So Andrew, I need some advice. Should I trade St. Brown and Chase Brown for Justin Jefferson? I have Garrett Wilson, Debo Evans, Amari Cooper. Running backs are Achane, Jonathan Taylor, Brian Robinson Jr., and Jonathan Brooks. Okay. So I'm not sure what your scoring format is, which is a little bit, let me see here. Maybe you type it in the live chat. 12-team league, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and a flex. Okay, so let's say, for example, you play in a half PPR situation here. With only 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, start 5 in those overall positions. You have Garrett Wilson, Debo Samuel. Once Mike Evans comes back, he's going to be, in my opinion, a top 12 wide receiver rest of the way. You have Achane, JT, so you'd be trading away St. Brown and Chase Brown. Ultimately, I think you can get away with this trade. Do you need to? You don't need to, but I think I'm perfectly fine making that move. I think definitely Justin Jefferson is a huge upgrade from St. Brown, especially in the long term here, especially with Jameson Williams also returning. More exposure to opportunity for Laporta, and of course the Detroit Lions playing so well offensively and defensively, they're just blowing out teams, and it forces Jared Goff to not to have to complete so many passes over the course of a game. So yeah, I don't mind the trade because at this point, once you get him on roster, you're playing Justin Jefferson, Garrett Wilson, Debo Samuel, Achane, and JT every week for the remainder of the season. Now there will be some instances in which you are going to need to put in like Brian Robinson in a bye week situation once he's healthy, of course. But yeah, I don't mind the trade. Is it necessary? No, not exactly. It's not necessary. You could literally keep it as is and have no issue. But yeah, I don't mind the trade. Again, it's basically just the rich getting richer in a singular circumstance. Are you losing running back depth? Yes. That's why I don't think it's necessary. Because with Brian Robinson kind of sitting there and Jonathan Brooks really an unknown factor, like Jonathan Brooks, we don't know what he's going to become in the next couple of weeks. Brian Robinson dealing with an injury. Jonathan Taylor, again, if he's in a tough matchup, could be a troublesome play. So again, losing running back depth is never ideal, especially late in the season. But yeah, I don't mind it. I think your team is stacked enough to where you can just get away with anything with these kind of trades. Thank you for the question. Appreciate it, Angel. King Alex sends in a question. Says, hi, Andrew. I'm currently 3-6 in a full PPR. I need help for a must-win again. 2 wide receivers, 1 running back, 1 flex, and 1 tight end. We have Devontae Smith, who is questionable, Marvin Harrison Jr., Pickens, Najee Harris, Chase Brown, Algier, Ingram, and Gesicki. Thanks. All right, so 2 wide receivers, 1 running back, 1 flex, 1 tight end. Very well. So of the available that you have on roster here, let me see how I'd go about this. So I'm playing Chase Brown at that running back position, assuming, of course, he's healthy and ready to go by tomorrow. Chase Brown will be your starting running back. Your 2 starting wide receivers would be Pickens alongside of Devontae Smith, under the assumption, again, Devontae Smith is active and playing. Then your flex this week is going to be looking at the group, it's probably just, do I just play Najee there or do I? Okay, so in a full PPR, I might be, yeah, I think it's probably just safer to play Najee and then just play. Okay, so this is what I'm immediately thinking, King Alec. I don't have flex rankings done. I'll have that done by tomorrow afternoon. But off the top of my head, the way that I'm thinking I'd play this, assuming everyone's healthy, I'm going Chase Brown at running back, Devontae Smith and Pickens at wide receiver, and I'm playing Ingram and Gesicki as your tight end and your flex. That's the way that I would approach it. In a full PPR scoring format, that's how I'd set it up. And I'd bench Najee Harris. If you don't want to take that risk, obviously you play Najee Harris in the flex over Gesicki and you just, stick Ingram in that tight end. But considering there's a lot of rumors regarding the potential of, Trevor Lawrence maybe not even playing this week, considering they elevated CJ Beathard, I think it might be safer just to play Gesicki at the tight end position tomorrow. And then if the week progresses, play Ingram at flex. Otherwise, pivot to Najee. That's probably the way that I'd approach it as of right now. But yeah, Chase and Pickens and Smith would be the automatics. Thank you. All right. Angela Clark sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew, I need one wide receiver and one flex. We have Terry McLaurin, Devontae Adams, Chase Brown, Tracy. Always appreciate your insights and advice. Thank you. No problem. All right, Angela. So of the available players that you have on roster, again, there's a lot of good players here across the board. In a full PPR scoring format, I think I'd regret not playing. Okay, let's see here. Where do I have Tracy in terms of this projection? Let's figure this out really quickly. Let's go here. Okay, so I'm thinking immediately that I'm playing both wide receivers. I'd rather play Adams and McLaurin over the two running backs. I think I might regret not playing Tracy there against the Carolina Panthers because he could go for his 100-yard rushing game. But usually in those games, he doesn't get much opportunity or exposure opportunity within the receiving category, which then lowers his overall upside in a full PPR format in comparison to those two other prospects, McLaurin and Devontae Adams. So right now, I'm probably going McLaurin 1, Adams 2, Tracy 3, Chase Brown 4. That's the order in which I'd approach it as of right now. I could variably audible it by tomorrow, but as of right now, I think I'm pretty confident with that approach. Thank you. All right, Swilly FN in the chat says, Andrews or Gesicki in a full PPR? I'd much rather play Mike Gesicki this week, especially in the full PPR format in the absence of T. Higgins, already designated as doubtful. I think that's a really strong play for tomorrow night. Raghav sends in a question, says, in a 10-team full PPR, I'm 4-5. My quarterback is Jordan Love and Darnold. Cool. So you play Darnold this week pretty comfortably. You have Achane, Jacobs, Connor, and Chuba. Very well. You play Achane and Connor at running back. Etienne, Brooks, Chase, Kupp, Debo, Downs. Okay, so you'll play Kupp and Chase as your two starting wide receivers. Debo in the flex. You have Ingram and Ferguson. Ingram's your starting tight end. Any changes to make? Currently in 7th, 2 games behind first. You're currently in 7th, but you're 2 games behind first. So the first place team is only 6-3. That's pretty crazy. So again, am I making any variable changes? I don't think that they're necessary. I think Darnold has played well, and so has Love. When they're both active and healthy, of course, you could just play matchups going forward. The running back group, I think, is relatively safe across the board here. Obviously, Chuba and Brooks combo gives you a little bit of movement for the future, but ultimately, you're always going to start Achane, Jacobs, and Connor rest of season when they're available, and you will have Achane rest of season every single week, of course, considering he's already passed his bye. Wide receivers are studs across the board. Tight ends are solid, but Ingram will probably be the go-to in the absence of Dak Prescott, which is expected to probably miss more than 4 weeks here in the upcoming future. So I don't make any variable changes. I think you're pretty strong across the board there, Raghav. And again, you just got to hope that your team continues to score so you can catch up to that top 6 conversation. Connor sends in a question, says, I screwed up, traded my neighbors for Nico. I don't think it's a terrible mistake. No. Actually, I prefer that. That's fine. I have Hurts, Kyron, Kenneth Walker, Chase Brown, Chubb, BTJ, AJ, CD, Nico, Waddle, DeAndre Hopkins, Bowers, Gesicki. What moves or trades should I do? I mean, look, Connor, it's purely dependent on what your record is and then what exactly. Okay, so let's say, for example, you have a 4-5 record, or potentially you're 3-6. If you're 3-6, you have to trade away Nico Collins. Because if there's a chance that by the time we get to Friday, he does not practice in a full capacity, at that point, I am in your position trading him away. Because you need to have all hands on deck for this week if you are in that record sense. But if you don't, if you have a 4-5 record, 5-4, 6-3, I don't think this is an issue. I'd rather have Nico Collins rest of season 10 times out of 10 over Malik Neighbors. So again, I don't think you made a mistake. It's just a matter of what the context of your current record is based on what you'll need to go ahead and, how many games you'll need to win in order to make the playoffs. In this current circumstance, again, if you are a 3-6 team, you will need to win out. And in the absence of Nico Collins, it will not get you one step closer to accomplishing that. So it just depends on that kind of circumstance. All right, let's see. We had a question that also came in from John S. John, thank you very much. He says, am I crazy for wanting to start Rodgers over Kyler this week in a 6-point per passing touchdown league? No, I don't think you're crazy at all. Again, Aaron Rodgers, he has scored 2 passing touchdowns in 6 of the last 8 games. So if he's guaranteed 200 and let's say, let me see here. What is Aaron Rodgers minimum passing yardage this season? I think it's 220 from what I remember off the top of my head. Let's see here. Let's see if Andrew's memory serves him well in regards to stats like that. So let's go pull up 2024 game logs, Aaron Rodgers. So his minimum passing yards. Okay, so since week 3 and beyond, his minimum passing yards 210 since week 3. So if he's going to get himself, let's say, just to be safe, let's say 210. Let's get cute with it a little bit. Okay, 210 divided by 25 is 8.4. So 8.4 plus, let's say he gets 6 point per passing touchdown and he gets 2 touchdowns this week. We get an extra 12 points there. He's already a 20-point guy. If he turns over the ball, so be it. He's an 18-point player. But if he has any rushing upside, any additional passing statistics, yeah, he's pretty much a 20-point player within the given week in a 6 point per passing touchdown league. So yeah, I don't think it's an issue at all. I don't think you're crazy in doing so, John. Chico410 sends in a question. Says, I need 1 wide receiver, 1 running back, and a flex. We have JMO, we have Jennings, we have Chuba, we have Stevenson. Okay, cool. So in a half PPR scoring format, the way that I would approach this would be playing Stevenson as your RB1, and then also following up by playing Jennings as your wide receiver 1. I think Jameson has a little bit too much kind of volatility associated with him for me to feel comfortable rolling him out this week. I'd rather just play Jennings in this circumstance. So Stevenson and Jennings will be the 2 that I play, a wide receiver, running back. Oh, and you have a flex. Apologies. So in the flex, it's either Chuba Hubbard or Jameson Williams. I probably play Chuba Hubbard there, to be honest, considering how well he has played this season. And of course, the fact that they take on the Giants. That's a great matchup. The Giants really have been beat up on the ground as of late, giving up their fair share of stats across the board. So yeah, I'd go with the 2 running backs and Jennings. Thank you. Alec S. sends in a question. Says, pick 2 in a PPR. We have Dobbins, we have London, we have Cooper, and we have Neighbors. Of the available, Neighbors, if Neighbors and London are both healthy and ready to go, those are my 2 that I'm starting in a full PPR scoring format. If, let's say, for example, London by somehow, some way, by the time we get to Friday, they say he's not going to play because of the hip pointer, then you would play Neighbors alongside of Dobbins. Thank you. Let's see here. Venomous Raptor 7 sends in a question. Says, in a 12-team PPR, wide receivers are A.J. Brown, Khalil Shakir, JSN, Demario Douglas. Running backs are Saquon, Breece, and Tracy. Second place near lock for playoffs. Sounds good. Trade Douglas, Tracy for DJ Moore and Mostert. Ooh, I don't really like Mostert in that scenario. So you're really just trading him for DJ Moore. Mostert's fumbled twice in the last 3 games. At times has been inefficient in terms of his overall rushing, yard per carry average in comparison to Jalen Wright. They could eventually move on to Jalen Wright, as early as the next couple weeks here, if they, see fit. Am I willing to move? It's basically the way that I see it. It's really just Tracy for DJ Moore. Who would I rather have for rest of the season? Quite frankly, looking at your depth at wide receiver as it currently stands with AJ Brown, Shakir, JSN, I think I keep Tracy and I potentially just fill him in as your flex play rest of the way. That's the way that I would go about it. Now, if you feel like DJ Moore is going to be a significantly better option rest of the season, which again, in very seldom circumstance has that been the case this season. The most recent game that I can remember that he was a monster was against Carolina. Outside of that, has been relatively quiet for the last month here. So for right now, I'd probably just keep Tracy for the future, especially considering I really like his upcoming schedule. All right, let's see here. 11 Lobo sends in a question. Says, I sent my question in the chat, man. Thanks. No problem. All right, let's see if I can find Lobos. All right, says, hey, man. Just hopefully improved my team and prepared well for the playoffs. I'm 7-2 in a 10-team full PPR. I just made 2 back-to-back trades. One was JT for Neighbors. Sounds good. My other Gibbs for Adams. I don't like the second one. Okay, so here is the issue with the trades. Okay, I don't know who your running backs are. So let's see your context. My team is currently Allen, Gibbs, Walker, CD, Neighbors, Okay, so now I'm confused. So, because you said your team is currently Gibbs, but then in the prior message you said the other is Gibbs for Adams. So did you trade Gibbs or did you trade for Gibbs? Because when you say, like, if you say Gibbs for Adams, my assumption is that you traded Gibbs for Adams. But based on the way that your roster is constructed, you didn't send away Gibbs for Adams, which is a positive. But you didn't end up you did in fact trade JT for Neighbors, which is a positive. So considering Gibbs and Neighbors are on your team, 2 thumbs up, no issues, fantastic, love it. Don't need to make any changes. You get Pacheco back in due time. Dobbs will be great. JSN will be great. Goff is a great backup quarterback in the event of when you have a Josh Allen bye week. Again, I think you're perfectly fine. You don't have any need to move. Sounds good? Sounds good. Thank you. All right, moving on to a question from Antonio Estrada, who says, "Hey, Andrew, I'm struggling at running back. I'm trying to trade quarterback Jaden Daniels in a 10-team PPR. What tier running back should I aim to get? If possible, like who?" Okay, let's go ahead and let's pull up a list of the great running backs in fantasy right now. So I think the value of Jaden Daniels is very much so subjective to the team in which you are trading them to. Obviously, if you go and you seek out a team that is in desperate need of a consistent quarterback play, they're obviously going to value Jaden Daniels and his stock significantly higher in comparison to a team that has Jalen Hurts. So therefore, depending on the teams who have the shitty quarterbacks in your league, that is who we are trying to take advantage of. Now, as to the tier of running back per se that you would theoretically go after at the moment, I mean, at this point, I don't know how desperate you are at running back, but I would assume players like, maybe, just putting it out there, if you could get a James Cook, an Aaron Jones, a DeAndre Swift, a James Conner, those are players that I am very much so interested in. If somehow, some way, you could even get, depending on how desperate you are running back, a David Montgomery, a Pollard, a Dobbins, I'm cool with those as well. That would, and I'd even argue Tracy. In some of that circumstance. But I want active players. I want healthy players, and that's what I'd go for. I don't want Brian Robinsons. I don't want Ramondres. I don't want Najee. I want just the slightly higher tier players that also get a little bit of sprinkles of receiving upside, and based on looking at their upcoming schedules, I think are pretty solid. Obviously, you'd love to go after Saquon, Achane, Mixon, Henry, Kyron. You'd love to go after those players. Kamara, Gibbs, etc. I think those are probably out of the realm of your kind of range, unless you were going to give Jaden Daniels plus a running back in order to get one of those players in return, which again, very much so dependent on what you have at running back. Again, you did say you were struggling at running back, so I would assume you may not have the ability to also give another player alongside of Daniels. So you would go for that lower tier. Again, they're not bad players. They're just lower than the top tier of players. So the Aaron Jones, the James Connors, the DeAndre Swifts of the world, of those kind of exchange of running back. Thank you. All right, Subtay sends in a question, says Downs or Ladd, also Marv or Juwan Jennings. Thanks. As of right now, the video, as right here, posted earlier today, I had Ladd McConkey just behind Josh Downs, so Josh Downs was higher ranked. And then as for Marvin Harrison or Juwan Jennings was 2 ranks below Marvin Harrison, if I'm not mistaken. So it'd be Downs and Marv. Those would be the 2 that I would suggest if it was my team. Thank you. Nightwalker sends in a question. Says in a full PPR, who's my flex this week? We have Tony Pollard or Ramondre Stevenson. As it currently stands, Tony Pollard, if he's fully healthy and there's no question about it, and we don't have any of this scary risk of him going into Sunday and maybe leaving the game due to an injury or anything like that, taking on the Los Angeles Chargers, typically a tough matchup, but I'd prefer to play him in comparison. So if you can, I'd play Tony Pollard in a full PPR. Now, if we get to the Friday and we still get like a did not practice or did not participate designation, I just play Ramondre blindly because I'm not willing to take the risk of Tony Pollard if, in fact, he has the ability to leave the game with an injury and Tyjae Spears is active. If Tyjae Spears is inactive, Tony Pollard will 100% play the game regardless of whether he gets hurt. He'll play through it. But that would be my contingency. Thank you. All right, we move on to ISO Flip, who says, I lost Dak, waiver May, Carr, Flacco, Russ, safe rest of season. Let me look at their upcoming schedule. Actually, you know what? Yeah, let me look at their upcoming schedules just so I have some sort of reference point as to what we can potentially expect to see in terms of their upcoming games. So if we look at weeks 10 through 14, so the remainder of the fantasy football regular season prior to the playoffs, just looking at Washington, Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Cleveland. Pittsburgh got their hands full with some really interesting matchups, but the secondaries for Baltimore, Cleveland, and Cincinnati are all pretty washed. So I think Russ would probably take the cake in this situation. Looking at you had Drake May, I'm not so interested in. Flacco, I don't mind, but even after he takes on Buffalo this week, has the Jets, Detroit, and then he has New England, then a week 14 bye. At least Russell Wilson is past his bye. You don't have to worry about replacing him in it, that kind of factor. So yeah, Russ is probably my suggestion in this circumstance. Thank you for the question. I appreciate it. Moving on to Marion Garcia, who says in the chat. Thanks, Andrew. No problem. All right, let's see here. I see your question. Let me scroll back up. Hopefully it's still in the chat. My YouTube is lagging. It's probably going to crash. Okay, here it is. Full PPR. My team is Josh Allen, Kamara, Jacobs, Lamb, Zay, McBride, J-Mo, Rome. Okay. Josh Allen, Kamara, Jacobs, Lamb, Zay, McBride, J-Mo, Rome. Bench is Jonathan Brooks, Pittman, DeMarcus Robinson, Tillman, and Johnny Smith. I'm 5-4. Should I make any moves? I mean, I think it really depends, right? So considering we have week 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, we have 5 weeks left. You have the potential of winning 5 of these games. In order to make the playoffs in your league, again, I would assume that let's say you're playing in a 10 or 12 team league. 6 teams make the playoffs. Let's say, for example, that is the case. You will need 8 wins. So you'll need to win 3 of the next 5 games. So having Jacobs on a bye week here, not ideal. So if I was in your position and you're thinking you might not have a good chance of winning this week in the absence of Jacobs, I'm shipping him off. But if you are in a position where you're like, listen, the team that I'm playing is slaughtered by the overall upcoming bye week, I'm probably going to lock in a victory here and I don't really have to worry about it, then at that point, I'm not really making any stressful panic moves. I think Allen, Kamara, Lamb, Zay, McBride, J-Mo, Rome is kind of sketchy, but considering the full PPR format, they are your best available options until Tillman returns next week. Again, Jacobs is my only question. Depending on what your circumstance is in, I might look to potentially move him like enough to where like I'd move him for Swift if I was in a desperate enough situation to where I have to win this week. Because I know they're past their bye and I know that of course he could provide me enough value this week to give me the win that I need. But again, very much so circumstantial. All right, moving on to a question that came in from Z Hens, who says, question is in Discord. Okay, let me pull it up on my phone because if I pull it on my computer, I am going to brick the whole system. So be patient with me real quick, Z Hands. While we pull that up on the phone, Nick sends in a question, says, happy birthday. Thank you very much. I have a 2-part question in the chat. All right, Nick, let's see what you have here. Nick L. says, okay, so these are the 2-part questions. Says, I'm 4-5 in a full PPR. I'm trying to trade Reed, Flowers, and Marvin Harrison for JJ. Okay, very well. We'll see Kyler, We'll see. Kyler, Brown, Gibbs, London, Terry, Laporta, Flowers. Bench is Marvin Harrison, Higgins, Mason, Njoku, Reed, Tua, Tracy, McCaffrey. Okay, pretty strong team. I need to drop someone to take McCaffrey off of the IR. Who should I drop? Drop one of my tight ends for Henry. That'd be crazy. I know. Okay, so let's see here. Of the available players you have on roster, Mason is your drop. I'm not even joking. That is your drop. Actually, you know what? Considering you have Kyler at quarterback, but you'll need a replacement for Kyler. Okay, let me look at this real quick. Cardinals schedule. Let me look this up. So the Arizona Cardinals have a Week 11 bye. So next week you're gonna need to fill in for them. So if we go to the NFL Week 11 schedule, let me see who the Miami Dolphins play to see if that's even worth keeping. They play the Raiders. Yeah. Okay. So you're going to want to keep Tua on roster. So Mason's your drop, legitimately. That is the player that you drop. Now, I would say that before you do so, if you're playing in a league, which is a completely normal league, and you're allowed to move players who are given the out designation to your IR spot, I would wait patiently until tomorrow night when T. Higgins goes from doubtful to out, then moving T. Higgins into your IR spot, and then putting McCaffrey back into your starting lineup so you don't have to drop anybody. But that is my initial suggestion. If you really had to drop somebody because you play in a funky league that does not let you put out player designations in the IR, then you would drop Mason. Thank you. All right, we move on to a question. Okay, so let's go to Zihen. Zihen, where art thou on this? Zihen, okay, I see it. It says I'm in a half PPR. I'm 8-1. Current team is Murray, Cousins, Saquon, Kyron Walker. Wide receivers are McLaurin, Downs, Deontay Johnson, Tillman, Pearsall, McBride, and Ingram are my tight ends. Is it worth trading Walker and one of my tight ends for Achane? I would. Okay, so here's the issue. When did the Jaguars have a bye week? Jaguars schedule. So the Jaguars go on bye week in week 12. So technically, if there is someone in your league that is on your waivers available to pick up and play instead of McBride, I'd be willing to ship away Evan Ingram alongside of Walker to get Achane. Yes, I would be willing to do so. Very confidently. But that is if, in fact, there is someone that is of value like a Hunter Henry, a Taysom Hill, or a Mike Gesicki on waivers that you could pick up right now so that you can utilize them next week in the absence of McBride. If there is not a viable enough option, I mean, shoot, I'd be even willing to play Jatavion Sanders next week, to be honest. So let me see here. NFL Week 11. Looking at the schedule, who's on bye week that week? Carolina is. Never mind, Jatavion Sanders is not going to be available. So you won't even have that as an option. So technically speaking, yes, if there is a waiver wire option to pick up. If not, no. Thank you. Appreciate it, Z-Hens. All right, let's move on to the next question. We had one from Nathan Salazar. Thank you, Nathan. It says, start 2 in a full PPR. Tyreek Hill, BTJ, Connor Dell. Okay, that is a to be determined situation. Let me tell you why. Because my immediate thought process is I'm going to play Tyreek Hill and I'm probably going to play, I'll probably play Connor next to him. But if we're going to be in a situation in which Nico Collins is inactive, at that point I would play Dell alongside of Tyreek Hill. But that's, again, we'll know by Friday. We'll have to wait and see. But again, that is your contingency move. Thank you. Rogo sends in a question, says, sup, bro? Keep/start CJ with Nico. His return, I have Baker and Matt. No, like I was telling you yesterday, Rogo, CJ's got to go. Of the available quarterbacks that you have, when I look at Baker's upcoming schedule, I think we've talked about this in the past. Let me go ahead and pull up the Buccaneers schedule for the weeks that in which they come back from their bye week. Okay, so we know that, of course, this week you're going to start Matthew Stafford. That is the best of your two potential options. Now, Baker Mayfield is not a bad start. He can play against any defense and still play well. Again, as an offense, they have scored 31, 26, and 24 in the last 3 games, and they have had injuries from Mike Evans and Chris Godwin absent, and they're still putting up 24 or more points in each of those games. So even this week, he's fine. But once Baker comes back from his bye week in week 11 and the return of Mike Evans occurs, they play against the Giants, Panthers, Raiders, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Dallas Cowboys, and then the Carolina Panthers again. I mean, that's a cakewalk. It's Baker for the rest of the way. So it's purely just a matter of, okay, well then who's filling in this week and week 11 in the absence of, in the absence of Baker Mayfield, which again, when I look at the upcoming matchups of CJ Stroud versus Detroit, I have no interest in that. I'd rather play Matthew Stafford versus the Miami Dolphins. And in the following week after, CJ Stroud, let's see here. What is their upcoming schedule, week 11? Let's see here. Oop, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's go Control F. Nope, that's not. Why does it do that? Okay, it full screens for some reason. I think that's the issue. I need an F3 function. Texans play against the Cowboys. That's not bad. But then the Rams play against the Patriots. Honestly, at that point, again, I'm comfortable just keeping Matthew Stafford. Either way, I think they'll find success. I would drop CJ Stroud for the rest of the season. I'd keep Stafford and I'd keep Baker rest of the way. Thank you. All right, moving on to a question that comes in from, let's see here. All right, Chris sends in a question. It says, full PPR. Would you trade A.J. Brown for Neighbors? I would not. I would rather have A.J. Brown rest of the season. Thank you for the question. Maddie sends in a question, nothing attached to it. Maddie, let me see if you have anything typed in the live chat. Maddie says, hi, Andrew. Please help me. I need to choose one wide receiver and one flex in a full PPR. We have Hill, Puka, Cup, okay, BTJ, Jonathan Taylor. Best ones this week, okay. Thanks also, Darnold over Jaden for best upside. Am I playing Darnold over Jaden for upside? Darnold in the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, it's a pretty good matchup against Jacksonville. And then you have Jaden Daniels taking on Pittsburgh. I'd probably still play Jaden Daniels for that rushing upside. I can understand the mentality as to why you would want to potentially play Darnold there, because he could easily throw 3 touchdowns. If it was a 6-point per passing touchdown league, I'd say yes. Considering it's a 4-point per passing touchdown league, most likely, Maddie, I think you just play Jaden Daniels there and take the production that is, pretty much his average, which is probably going to be like, 18 to 20 points, if not more upside in the overall circumstance. But as for your potential wide receiver play, I'm playing Kupp and Hill. Those are the two that I would play as your wide receiver in your flex this week. Thank you. All right, moving on to the question that comes in from Nick A, who says, in a half PPR, record is currently 8-10. Okay, so basically in a normal league, you're 4-5. Just for context sake for everybody. Trade Henry for Achane and Pickens. I have Hill, Evans, Mooney, Tillman, Myers, and Leggett. My running backs are Henry, Hall, Bucky, and Tracy. I mean, it depends on how many wide receivers and running backs you can start with in a given week. Nick, can you give me some context as to how many running backs, wide receivers, and flex you can start in a given week? Once I have that context, I'll be able to very easily answer your question. Thank you. Just type it in the live chat. Don't send in another super. Just type it in the live chat. Thank you. Seta sends in a question. Seta, where art thou? Okay, there it says, I'm in second place with the 6-3 record. I'm in a 12-man full PPR. We have Jalen Hurts, Gibbs, Brian Robinson, Tony Pollard, Pacheco, Tracy, J-Jet. We have CeeDee Lamb, BTJ, Tillman, Kraft, Gesicki, trying to get a top 5 tight end and maybe a running back out of Brian Robinson and Pollard. What would you do? I mean, look, at this point, if you're trying to trade away Brian Robinson and Pollard, you're going to have to find a team specifically that is in desperate need of 2 running backs. Because if someone doesn't need the running back depth, then, the idea of trading them away in exchange for a running back is probably not going to work. They're going to have to be in need of a second RB. So where they're giving you, for example, Bijan Robinson for Brian Robinson and Pollard, and then that would be it. Now, getting a tight end on top of it is going to be very difficult because then you would have to take a discount at the running back at which you are getting a return. So maybe you can give away a Brian Robinson and a Pollard and get back a James Conner and let's say, for example, let's say a Cade Otton. That is potentially within the realm of possibility as of right now. So, I mean, you could try that. If that's something that, again, if it's going to work, let's go for it. In a full PPR, if I can get a tight end that is going to be 10 to 12 plus points every game minimum, rest of the way, I'd go for it. Because, again, if you're currently struggling at tight end and you don't have anybody on roster, giving away Brian Robinson and Pollard, you'll have Pacheco in a couple weeks. You still have Tracy, and you're still also getting a running back in exchange for it to where you're still comfortable in that circumstance. I think the worst case scenario is like I'd get Ingram in return, but the running back would have to be a little bit more valuable considering, again, the uncertainty as it currently stands with Trevor Lawrence. But otherwise, like Bowers, Kelsey, Kittle, Otton, Ingram, who else is in that top tier? I mean, considering Njoku's on a bye week, maybe that's not the greatest play as of right now, but he could be in that conversation as well. Those would be the kind of guys I go after. Maybe Pitts, but again, have to be a little bit more valuable running back. Appreciate it. Okay, let me see if Nick A had sent in a question in the live chat or a response to my question. Let's see. Nick A says, I start 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and 2 flex. Perfect. Thank you very much for the context, Nick. Okay, so considering that is the circumstance here, am I willing to trade that for that? So you'd start, let's say, for example, you start 6. So you could theoretically start Achane and Hall as your 2 starting running backs. Then you'd have Hill, Evans, once he's back and healthy. We're thinking, well, okay, look, he'd be filling in for Evans, which gives you a little bit of a time crunch here because you are missing Evans, you're missing Tillman, and you're missing Myers this week. So you have Hill. Yeah, I'm okay with the move. I have no issue with it at all, Nick. Considering the circumstance you are in with your current record of 4-5, 8-10, whichever you want, considering you don't have Evans, you don't have Tillman, and you don't have Myers this week, you're going to be in need of both Achane and Pickens. Both of them are past their buys. And once you get back once Gandalf and the Riders of Rohan come down on the 7th day, they look to the north. After they show up, at that point, your team will be that much stronger. And at least you'll be able to play, on average, it would be like Hill, Evans, Tillman, and then Pickens every week. Maybe not even Tillman. Maybe it would be Myers and then Pickens, and you can maybe move Tillman after that point. Yeah, I'd make the move. I don't have an issue with that at all, Nick. Thank you. All right, let's see here. We had a question from AM who says, would you trade Jaden Reed and Chase Brown for Aaron Jones? Nope, I would not. I'd keep them both. I have Achane, Hunt, Warren, and Wilson, London, Cup. I'd rather keep them both because at this point, I don't see that being a huge separation of value to the extent to where I am panic trading away Chase Brown. Unless he was going to miss some sort of time with an injury, I don't think it's worth it because I'd rather have the rest of season depth with the upcoming potential bye weeks that will land in and have to force you to bench some of these players. So, and again, you are also losing Hunt in the not so distant future, which again, I'd like to have Reed just in case of a wide receiver going down to where they fill in. Because yeah, you just be trading for one running back. So yes, I'd keep what you have there, AM. Good luck sends in a question, says, happy birthday, bro. Questions in the chat. All right, thank you very much. Good luck. I appreciate that. Good luck says, what's up, Andrew? I appreciate your advice for the last couple weeks. Back on starting Goff over, what does it say? Back on starting Goff over Burrow in that matchup. I gave the 7-0 guy his first loss. Congratulations. Now at 6-3, I'm in second place. Start Waddle or Mooney in a full PPR. I'd rather start Mooney, especially with the uncertainty of what Drake London is going to present and all of the injuries that have taken place with the secondary of the New Orleans Saints, and the fact that they've now lost Marshawn Lattimore due to the overall recent trade. That means that the number 2 cornerback that would be covering Mooney for the majority of the day is now their third or fourth string cornerback, because their number 2 has to move to their number 1. Their number 3 has to move to their number 2. But their number 1 and their number 2 and their number 3 are injured. So really, they're just playing backups. I'd rather play Mooney. Thank you. Sorry, I just had to give the core explanation. It's just a really strong matchup because really, they just don't have anybody healthy in their secondary, and they just got rid of their best cornerback. All right, Subtay sends in a follow-up, says, love the content. Can you answer my question? Subtay, I thought I answered your first question. Let's see here. Am I mistaken? Let's see your Subtay. So I answered the first one, which was Downs and Marv. Is this another one? Let me see here. Okay, the next question's in the chat. Says full PPR 12-team league. Purdy, Achane, Demo. Okay, so as in David Montgomery. JJ, Zay Flowers, Kraft, Marvin Harrison. Bench consists of Mason, Gesicki, Jennings, Warren, Dak, Douglas. I'm looking for a wide receiver 3, RB3. Who should I trade for? I'm 4-5 right now. 2 games from first, excuse me. Okay, if you're looking for a wide receiver 3 to trade for, I'm going after Josh Downs. That's what I'm going for in a full PPR. As for the potential of going after an RB3 for rest of season purposes, I think I'd go after Bucky Irving. That's the way that I'd go about it. Those are the 2. That's the RB3 and that's the wide receiver 3 that I want. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Anthony C sends in a question. Says Jameson Williams, Calvin Ridley, and Addison are on the wire. Okay. Who should I pick up from the rest of seasons? Okay, very well. 10-team half PPR. Current wide receivers are AJ, Shakir, T. Higgins, and Downs. Okay. So considering Ridley really has no target competition, he'd probably be the pickup. Now, again, it's very much so contingent on who plays quarterback there. There could be a chance that Will Levis returns and he finally looks in the direction of Ridley, even though he ignored him all of the season. But Ridley would be the primary guy that I go after in this circumstance as of right now. The second best, in my opinion, would probably be Jameson Williams, and Addison would be third. Thank you. Anthony C sends in a question, says, okay, so that was Anthony again. Thank you, appreciate it. Demise says, question is in the chat. Thank you, Demise. All right, Demise says, my starting team 6-man full PPR is St. Brown, Josh Allen, Saquon, Lamb, Kelsey, Scary Terry, and Breece Hall. My bench consists of Downs, Tracy, Kate Otten. Any changes? I mean, considering you're playing in a 6-team league, Demise, you have an all-star squad, right? Like everybody in this conversation, based on my weekly rankings, Josh Allen's always in the top 5. St. Brown, Lamb. I mean, Lamb is really your weakest component of your starting lineup, mainly because of the unfortunate recent injury to Dak Prescott. But even then, I had him ranked in my top 16 today at the wide receiver conversation going into this week. So really, I don't think a necessary change needs to be made. But if you could upgrade on Lamb, I would try to explore that measure. As to who you would go after at wide receiver, I think it's very much so dependent on who's willing to trust in buying Lamb and who wants to kind of wait until the fantasy playoffs to see if, in fact, Dak Prescott was to even return. That would be something that, again, it's very much so dependent on your league mates that are more receptive to that idea. You'd have to go after teams that have a very, already good standing in terms of their win-loss record. And you'd be like trying to sell them Lamb on the idea that, hey, Dak Prescott could return in 4 weeks. And by that point, you'd have Lamb in the fantasy playoffs. And then you try to sell that for their best of it, not their best wide receiver, but hopefully one of their top 2 wide receivers in exchange. Because going forward, just like how we talked about earlier, from 2022 weeks 2 through 6, with Cooper Rush in the lineup, he was averaging about 13 and a half fantasy points per game in a half PPR. In a full PPR, it's probably like 16 and a half. So that's probably what we're going to get. If you're okay with that and you're not going to get the upside of the 20-point plays from Lamb very often, then we'll just roll with what you have as it stands. Otherwise, you try to make an upgrade on that. Thank you, Demise. All right, Jordy Peasy says, wrote in chat, easier to type out. Okay, I see it. It says in a half PPR, in a 12-man league, I'm currently 2-7. Okay, so basically you have to win every single game henceforth, and even then you may not be able to make the playoffs based on points scored. Okay, so this being said, Jordy, before I even read your question, you understand what this implies, right? Your current record and the overall situation. You cannot have a single player on your roster that has a terrible matchup, that is on bye, or is injured. If any of those three things plague a specific player on your team, they need to be traded. Otherwise, in any given week, your season's done. So, considering the question here, you say you have quarterback Tua, wide receivers Olave, Harrison, Neighbors, Douglas, Demarcus Robinson, running backs are Montgomery, Hubbard, Brooks, Herbert. By week 11 is bad. Trade Harrison Jr. for Waddle, Algier, yes. Trade Olave for Madison, he's useless right now. That's fine. Again, you know the whole structure. Like I said in the beginning, as long as you are trading away every single bye week injured player or bad matchup option, good to go. Send them all away, because at any point, as soon as you take an out, your season's done. Thank you. All right, Anvesh sends in a question. Says, trade for Nico by giving Bigsby and Garendo. Absolutely no questions asked. Anvesh, accept the deal already, brother. Take Nico Collins and run to the hills. Run to the hills. Absolutely take that. Give them something else if they want it. But Bigsby and Garendo is chump change. It's nothing. It's literally bottom of the barrel running backs for Nico Collins, who is a rest of season top 3 wide receiver. So yes, we'll take Nico there. Marvin Lewis sends in a question. Thank you, Marvin. Marvin says in a standard, I have St. Brown, excuse me, Dobbs, Leggett, Hunt, Travis, Eckler, Bigsby. Okay. I'm assuming Travis is ETN. You have Braylon Allen, Herbert, Dak, Williams, and May. Very well. Ingram and Ferguson. Who should I trade and for who? I'm currently 6-3 in a 12-team league. Okay, so considering you have Dak Prescott, he could probably be dropped, to be totally honest. Herbert and Dak are your solid quarterbacks, but Herbert's going to have to run the entire ship rest of the way. Luckily, he's past his bye week. But once we look towards like the fantasy playoffs for the Los Angeles Chargers, their matchups are Baltimore, which I think is great. Excuse me, no, that's not even their fantasy playoffs. So that's week 12. Sorry, let's go to their fantasy playoff schedule here. The Chargers have Tampa Bay, great. Denver, not so great. Then New England, which is awesome. So they have 2 out of the 3 matchups solid. The only thing I would think is like you can hold on to Dak and hope he returns for week 16, which is a possibility that he does so, or you can move on from him and try to prepare for a week 16 quarterback in that circumstance. Now, as for the rest of your team, St. Brown doesn't move. Dobbs, again, if that's your wide receiver 2 rest of the way, you're probably going to need to look to try to get a better wide receiver 2. Now, it's not like he's not going to be able to function and won't be a proper solid option in that circumstance, but I mean, what else? You don't really have much. Oh man, Marvin, this team is so thin because, okay, so this is what I'm thinking. You have Drake May as well. Okay, you're fine there. All right, so here is my immediate thought. You probably have to trade for Isaiah Pacheco because as soon as you lose Kareem Hunt, your running back room is decimated. So my initial thought is do whatever you can to get Pacheco on this roster. That is who you're going after. As long as you're not giving away St. Brown and Dobbs, I'd give away whatever else they want in order to get Pacheco back. I think that is your number one priority at the moment. Jorge Perez sends in a question. Says, hi, Andrew. In a full PPR, flex Hunt, Tracy, Chase Brown. As of right now, I'm pretty sure I'm going to... Well, I said I'm pretty sure, but in a full PPR, I think Tracy's probably still the best play of the 3. I have them back-to-back in my half PPR rankings with Tracy still at the top. Because they play against Carolina, that's just a cakewalk of a matchup. If Kareem Hunt got more exposure to opportunity within the receiving game like Tracy and Chase Brown does, then he'd probably be the best play. But as of right now, it's probably Tracy number 1, Chase Brown 2, Hunt 3 in a full PPR. That's probably the way that I'd go about it. Thank you, Jorge. Michael Barton sends in a question, says, Leggett, Worthy, Algier, pick 1 in a PPR. Yeah, I'd much rather play Leggett over the group. I mean, it would be in that exact order. Leggett number 1, Worthy 2, Algier number 3. And then it says, Vikings defensive rank, I have no clue. I haven't even started defensive ranks. I haven't even started tight end or quarterback ranks for this week. That is exactly what I'll be doing at the end of today's or after today's live stream. But as for the Vikings against the Jaguars, especially if there's a chance that Mac Jones ends up starting, assume they're going to be a top 5, defense this week for sure. And then your next question, Taysom Hill, Ertz, or Giants tight end for this week. I'd rather play Taysom Hill out of all those options. And then the next option is play Taysom Hill and Gesicki in the flex is a good move. Yeah, I believe that's a good move. I mean, even in my main home league, I'm playing Mike Gesicki in the flex this week. That's how confident I am in his overall potential for success in tomorrow's game against Baltimore. All right, Benny G sends in a question. Says, good day, Goat. Tell chat to like and subscribe. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, if you guys haven't yet already, there's only 58 likes on the live stream. If you guys haven't yet already, do me a favor, click that button. I appreciate it. Let's see here. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's do this. That was too much spam. Okay. Continuing on. Let's scroll a little bit here. Football is life. Says, sup, Andrew. All hail the Dodgers. Question in the chat. Listen, a small market team like us winning the championship was very unlikely, but we'll take it. Football is life. I see your question. Says, my team is Allen, Saquon, Christian McCaffrey, AJ Brown, Amon-Ra, Bowers, Otten, Higgins. Okay, Montgomery, Evans. Any trade ideas? No, you don't have any trade ideas. You have Allen, Saquon, McCaffrey, AJ Brown, and Amon-Ra. You have literally 2 top 5 running backs rest of season, 2 top 6 wide receivers, a top 3 quarterback, and arguably Bowers, who is potentially the number 1 tight end rest of the way, if not Otten, that could be in that conversation. Then you have Evans, Higgins, Montgomery, who are fantastic options for your flex rest of season. I understand that Evans and Higgins are not healthy, but Montgomery will suffice until they return. There's no need to make any changes here. You have a stud roster that, again, it should just be auto-started. You should never look at your team. You should just change your lineup maybe once every week on a Sunday morning. Outside of that, there really isn't a need to do so. You just let it ride. Thank you. Gio Ortiz says, in a PPR flex, Deontay Johnson over Rome? No, I'd rather play Rome Odunze as of this week. Jennings and Warren. Okay, so as of right now, I would play Rome and Jennings ahead of Deontay Johnson. Would I play Deontay Johnson over Warren in a PPR? Probably, but I think it's a little too sketchy for this week. I probably just play all 3 of those other options. I'll play Rome number 1. Actually, no, I play Jennings number 1, Rome 2, Warren 3. I think, I'll just give Deontay Johnson another week just to see what he's capable of before I throw him out there in my starting lineup and risk it on a Thursday. 10 Fam sends in a question. Says, PPR, trade away Flowers for Marvin Harrison? No, I'd rather have Flowers rest of the way. Thank you. Marvin Lewis says, my bad, 14-team league. Got it. I mean, yeah, that's why your team is so thin. But yeah, if you can try to get Pacheco, that is the way to go about it. Connor says, I'm currently 6-3, question above. Should I make RB trade? Let me go back up to Connor's question. Maybe I lost the question. Control F, Connor. Should I make RB trade? No, I don't think you need to. You have Kyron, Kenneth Walker, and Chase Brown. No, you don't need to make a running back trade. You're fine. Again, a lot of your guys' situations, you don't need to make moves. You may think you need to make moves, but I'm here to ensure that you don't, because a lot of your situations are pretty solidified, and a lot of them are safe rest of the way. There doesn't need to be a panic trade made. Cowboys 9511 says, I've got Otten at my tight end spot. I need a flex. Start Mike Gesicki or Juwan Jennings. I'd rather play Mike Gesicki. Thank you very much, Cowboys. Juwan sends in a question. Or Juan sends in a question. Says, trade Chase Brown for Harris and Warren in a full PPR. No, I'd rather have Chase Brown rest of the way in a PPR. Thank you. Jesus Chavez says, have Puka, Hill, Smith trade Dell for White in a full PPR. This is what I'll say. If Tank Dell and Rashad White, either one of those two, are going to be one of your flex options and flex plays within a given week, I would rather have Dell rest of season. If you are making this trade in order to improve your running backs because you need to fill in as an RB2, because you can start 2 running backs every week, and that is your improvement that you are making, then okay. But otherwise, if these guys are for flex, I'd rather have Dell rest of the way. Thank you. Denon says, can you answer my follow-up question on Discord? Yeah, let me go ahead and pull it up on my phone right now. All right, let's see here. It says he's only offering one of those for Josh Downs. Cool. So if I'm looking for rest of season purposes, let's see here. Okay, so I'm going to look at this really quickly. Okay, and then we have As of right now, to be safe, I would probably tell you to take George Pickens. That's the way I go about it, Denon. I think T. Higgins, again, gets injured too often, and it is very sketchy to rely upon him in that scenario. So I'd probably just go with, Pickens would be the best option rest of season. All right, let's see here. Liquin Tanila sends in a question. 321 says, hi, Andrew. Need some advice on my lineup this week and for any trades. Team is in the chat. All right, says, hey, Andrew, I'm in a 12-team standard league. My team is Jaden Daniels, St. Brown, Mooney, Kyron Williams, Warren, Kincaid, Pearsall, Wan'Dale Robinson. Very well. My bench consists of Pittman, Madison, Kenneth Walker, Tillman, Deontay Johnson, and Hunter Henry. I mean, look, in terms of your lineup for this week, obviously you've been hit with the unfortunate bye week bug. If you're in a must-win scenario where you, again, have 3 wins or 4 wins and you have to win out for the remainder of the season, I'm trading Kenneth Walker and Tillman right now. Now, if that is not the case, then really there isn't need for variable change, because rest of the way, you're going to play St. Brown, Mooney, Tillman as your 1, 2, 3 wide receivers. Kyron Williams and Kenneth Walker will be your RB1 and 2. Your flex is going to have to be probably Madison and or Deontay Johnson. Potentially, you could even play Hunter Henry within the flex. In comparison to the other flex options that you mentioned, Pearsall or Wan'Dale, I'd rather play Hunter Henry over both of them this upcoming week specifically. But yeah, that's the way you go about it as of right now. Thank you. Han Wan says CeeDee Lamb and Rashad for Jacobs and Debo, non-PPR. Yeah, I will take Jacobs and Debo 10 times out of 10 the rest of the season. Thank you. We had a question that came in from Taylor Tran, who says, in a 12-team half PPR 4 and 5, I have Kyler, Nico, Neighbors, Shakir, Dobbs, Keon, Gibbs, Chase Brown, Brooks, Pacheco, McBride. Make moves or write it out with Nico back. Late buys too. So here's the thing. Okay, so as it currently stands, Kyler will be going on bye. Nico will be going on bye. Neighbors will be going on bye. Did the Bills already have their bye week? I don't think so, right? NFL bye weeks, Bills. Let's see this. The Bills' upcoming schedule. The Bills will have an upcoming bye week. So basically, your team is going to be strung out dry. McBride has a bye week. So yeah, looking at your team as a whole right now, you are fucked, Taylor, to be totally honest. At 4 and 5, you need to win out, especially if you're playing in a 12-team. So if you're playing in a 12-team league and 8 teams make the playoffs, you need 7 wins minimum. If you're playing in a 12-team league and 8 teams make the playoffs, you need 8 wins minimum. Considering with a 4 and 5 record, you're going to either need to win 4 of the next 5 or 3 of the next 5. So again, very difficult, and with those bye weeks, you're screwed. So therefore, in this scenario, anytime a player is about to hit the bye week or is going to, trade him away. Like in this position, considering I don't see a second quarterback on roster, I am trying to find a way right now to trade for a quarterback in your circumstance. If it requires giving away Kyler to go get like a Jared Goff and roll with Jared Goff rest of the way, or Sam Darnold rest of the way because they don't have their bye weeks upcoming, I would do that. So that, or Matthew Stafford, something of that exchange. But yeah, you need to trade away players that hit the bye. And you have a lot of players that are about to hit the bye because you can't afford to lose. Now, you could theoretically lose 2 of these games and still make the playoffs if you win the other 3 and 8 teams are allowed in the playoffs. You could finish with a 7-7 record and be perfectly fine. But again, if it's a 6 teams that get in the playoff situation, trades need to happen immediately. And if Nico Collins doesn't play this week, that's the first name on the chopping block. Jordy Peasy says, should I do Pickens, Algier over Waddle and Algier? Yes. For rest of season, yeah, I'd rather have Pickens. Let's see here. Fernando Perez says, PPR, start Najee Harris, Chase Brown, or McConkey at my flex. As of right now, I'm going to lean towards playing Chase Brown there. Also, drop Olave for Tillman. Yes, I would be willing to do so. I have A.J. Brown, Hopkins, McConkey, and more. Yeah, look, here's the issue. Olave, again, we haven't heard anything about him, which is either really bad or really good. But silence typically does not mean, a positive thing. I'm going to assume that they're going to take a couple weeks off on him to the extent to where, yeah, I'm willing to make the swap because Olave probably doesn't play for a couple weeks here upcoming. And if you don't have an IR spot to slot him in, I'd rather have Tillman. LLL619 says standard PPR, trade away CD for Mike Evans right now. Yeah, honestly, I'm willing to I'll do that. I don't think Dak Prescott's injury is it's not going to be pretty. Based on the report that I read earlier today, it's expected to be more than 4 weeks. So yeah, I'll take Evans. Thank you. Dave sends in a question. Says, I'm in a half PPR. Darnold, Lamb, London, Devontae Smith, Kyron, Achane, Hawkinson, Brian Robinson, Addison, Njoku, Rashad White, Bigsby Love. Trying to package 2-for-1 for an upgraded running back / wide receiver, but no one will bite. Any trades for rest of season? Who to target? Look, the biting in your league is mainly going to have to be teams that are either really desperate with a negative win-loss record or teams that, again, think they're objectively winning the trade outright. So if I'm in your situation, like Brian Robinson needs to be the first name on the chopping block because, again, his injuries keep popping up. And if you're going to send away another potential option, maybe you send away either Njoku or Hawkinson with him in order to get a running back in return. Again, obviously, a lot of the scenarios are going to be like you want players that don't have an upcoming bye week, which, again, Washington will, so you'll get rid of that. Njoku's on a current bye week, which you'll also get rid of that. So maybe those are the two names that we're getting rid of. As for what you would potentially try to get in return, as of right now at running back, if you can somehow, some way, it's going to be tough. But if you can somehow, some way sneak James Conner, that would make, even Tyrone Tracy, I'm okay with. Either of those two would be great. I don't think you can get a James Cook or an Aaron Jones, kind of tier player. J.K. Dobbins, you probably won't be able to get. Tony Pollard, you probably won't be able to get. Montgomery, you probably won't be able to get. So it'd have to be like a Connor, Tracy, Najee option. You're just basically making a slight upgrade, avoiding the injury risk of Brian Robinson and getting rid of a tight end to where you are getting that little slight upgrade. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Ivan Garcia says, would you trade Breece Hall and or Alvin Kamara for Gibbs? I would not trade Alvin Kamara, but I would trade Breece Hall for Gibbs. I would. I'd rather have Gibbs the rest of the season. But Alvin Kamara, I'd prefer to have. Daniel Roldan says, trade DJ Moore for Rico. Thoughts? You have Saquon and Swift. Okay, but it depends. Like, Saquon's already passed his bye, and Swift has already passed his bye. So are you ever going to play Rico over either of the two? No. So unless you are in need of a flex in which you believe Rico is going to be able to provide that for you rest of season, that's the only reason you'd ever make that move. Otherwise, no, I'd keep DJ Moore. Bob Fran sends in a question and says, PPR, Gesicki or Hunter Henry this week? I'd rather play Gesicki this week. Rest of season, I'd rather have Hunter Henry because, again, eventually we will see the return of T. Higgins. Happy birthday, Kyler or Stafford? If it was me, I'm probably... If it's a six... I got to think about that. Tomorrow, I'll for sure know the answer. I haven't done enough of my quarterback research. I've only barely started kind of compiling all the data in order for me to do the rankings. So by tomorrow, again, the video will be out probably around, hopefully, noon, 1 o'clock. And at that point, I'll be able to make a clear designation as to whether I'm playing Stafford or Tua this week. Kyler, Stafford, Tua, Stafford. As of right now, I'm probably leaning towards Stafford over Tua. And then between Kyler and Stafford, I'm slightly going to probably lean towards playing Stafford there as well. But we'll see. Let's see. Ross Wong sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew, I traded Pollard and Chase Brown for Bijan and Olave in a 12-team full PPR 2 flex team. Now is Stafford, Love, Bijan, Stevenson, Charbonnet, Chase, Nico, Puka, Devontae, Tillman, Allen, Kraft, Gesicki. Did I win the trade? So you traded... Okay, so... The issue is... You know what? I don't see an issue with this. Sounds good to me. You got Bijan Robinson, which I think is the most valuable piece there. You did lose a little bit of running back depth, but again, you still have Bijan and Stevenson. which again, I don't love the idea, but again, in the long term, I think Bijan is going to carry your team pretty hard. I don't mind it. Let's just hope that Olave gets healthy soon, which again, I don't think it's going to be great. It says, I'm aware Olave is injured with a concussion, but I wasn't too worried about my wide receiver room. Yeah, you're fine. In that case, as long as you understand the implied risk, then you're cool with it. Donald Smith says, are we starting Christian McCaffrey? Yes. At least I am. Worst case scenario, he scores 12.5 points. Best case scenario, he scores 27.5 points, right? That is the range of Christian McCaffrey. And in the worst case scenario situation, it's because he scores he scores a touchdown, he gets 6 points, and then he maybe has like a couple receptions and then like 50 receiving rushing yards total. And then at halftime, they're benching him because they're blowing out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That is a scenario in which he gets that many points. Or they're limiting him because they want him to not have a full reign of total opportunity yet, and they want to slowly get him into game shape. That could be a possibility, but again, he is still an auto start because of the potential at which he has for upside. All right, Roy Powell says, I traded Chase Brown, Marvin Harrison, Reed for Tyreek and Rome. Okay, interesting. Not sure I love that trade at all. Let's see. Your wide receivers are Kupp, Higgins, Downs. Okay, so you have Tyreek and Kupp going forward with Higgins and then down. Okay, Gibbs, HN, JT. Thoughts? The league is complaining it was one-sided. I'm going to be totally honest. I think the Chase Brown, Marvin Harrison, Reed side could end up out producing significantly what you got in exchange because Rome has not really been a consistent option. And Tyreek Hill, again, is very much so dependent on whether or not Tua is going to wake up from, his long slumber here for the last couple weeks. So I'm not even surprised that the league is complaining, but looking at your team as a whole, you would never play Chase Brown over any of those three running backs. So you're pretty much just giving away his fodder. Marvin Harrison is too inconsistent to kind of trust. And then Reed is like your most valuable receiver who's also been highly inconsistent. So I don't mind the trade, but people should not be complaining about it. They absolutely should not. Again, as long as the trade was not collusionary and one of these teams isn't 1-7, I think you're fine. Or 1-8, whatever it ends up being. Andrew Oliver sends in a question. Says, I'm in a 10-team keeper league. You keep 5 players. I'm currently 3-6. The next playoff spots are 4-5 and 5-4. Very well. When would you give up on the season and start planning for next year? Okay, so in this circumstance, you'd only give up if you lose the next 2 weeks. You'd give up once you take 2 more losses. Once you have 8 losses and you can only compile 6 total wins, that's when you'll give up. So if you lose 2 at any point, if you lose 2 of the next 5 games, that is when you pack it in. But even if you lose 2 of the next 5 games, there's a chance that these teams that are 4-5, 5-4 also continue to streak losses to where you could end up catching them based on points total scored and tie their record. So depending on when you get those 2 losses, whether they're now or in 3 weeks from now, time will tell. But that's when you would pack it in. All right, let's see here. We had a question for Prohibit who says, what do I do with CeeDee Lamb? Trade him or keep him? Also, Downs or Waddle this week? I'd rather play Downs over Waddle. As for CeeDee Lamb, I would try to trade him. Again, I don't expect Dak Prescott's injury to be a clean one to the extent to where he's coming back after an IR stint, like immediately. So I'm assuming we're probably going to be in a situation in which, again, unless you're okay with getting in a half PPR 13.5 points or a full PPR 16.5 points and not getting the normal production of what CeeDee Lamb is, normally producing, which is going to be 20 plus. If you're okay with the discount of CeeDee Lamb, then you don't have to move him. But if you want and try to take advantage of the idea of someone thinking that Dak Prescott's going to come back sooner rather than later, you'd move him for a top tier wide receiver position. Like somebody earlier asked, like, are you willing to trade Lamb for Mike Evans? And I'll take Mike Evans there. Because once Evans comes back, he will outproduce CeeDee Lamb rest of the way. And even if there's a situation in which Dak Prescott comes back for the final 2 weeks of the fantasy season, week 17, 18, I'd rather take what Evans is going to provide from weeks 12 through 16 than have to wait for those final 2 weeks while I'm suffering with Cooper Rush at quarterback. Christian Jackson sends in a question, says, PPR start 3, Zay Flowers, London Puka, Chase Brown or BTJ. Got it. So of the available options, Puka has to play, Zay Flowers has to play, and so does London. All 3 of those. The other 2 are bench options. Thank you. Trade London away for CD. No, I would trade CD for London. Tony Lopez says, greetings and salutations, Andrew. Please rank these quarterbacks rest of season. Stroud, Love, Tua. Looking at them across the board, I'd probably go Love, Stroud, Tua in that order. That's the preference that I would have. Mainly because if I look at the rest of season conversation, Stroud still has a bye week to enact. Love is currently on his. Tua has no bye week. But the issue with Tua is that the entire offense is predicated on rushing touchdowns. Just like it was last year, the Miami Dolphins were tied for first in terms of rushing touchdowns scored as an offense. Tua doesn't have as much upside, mainly because of that factor, in comparison to the offenses of course, Green Bay and, the Texans that aren't as, unfortunately, kind of tied within that situation. Love is always a 2 or more passing touchdown quarterback kind of stud. If I'm not mistaken, if we even go back to last season or the beginning of last season, he has like a 70+% rate of 2 or more passing touchdowns. He is the more consistent quarterback and honestly has the highest upside of the group, especially with the upcoming matchups ahead. Luke C sends in a question, says PPR flex rank Kincaid, Javonte Williams, Ray Davis, or Dallas Goedert. Out of those three, Kincaid's number 1, Javonte's number 2, Dallas Goedert is 3, and Ray Davis is 4. Thank you. De La Hoya sends in a question, says, greetings. I have no RB2. I am running with Henry alone. Lost Godwin and Kirk too. Would you do Chase and DeMario for Jacoby, Mooney, and Chubb? Okay, so you'd be trading away. Which Chase is this? Is this Chase like Jamar or Chase as in Brown? Because trading for Chubb doesn't give you a running back this week, and that's an issue. Jacoby's also on a bye week, so and I don't really like Chubb rest of the season anyway. So if I'm going to be making a trade for a running back, I'd rather just go after a Tyrone Tracy kind of player. Prohibit says, with that being said, CD for Wilson / Hunt. Yeah, I'd be willing to go after Wilson / Hunt, but that's only again, I'm not trading for Hunt. I mean, look, I would trade CD straight up for Garrett Wilson right now. Getting Hunt is just a bonus. Any underdog picks for tomorrow, Andrew? Yeah, as of right now, tomorrow's episode with quarterback and tight end rankings will include the plays. Again, they haven't pulled up the full kind of numbers yet. They only have some limited overall kind of exposure to numbers. Once they've gone ahead and put out the entire slate of overall bet picks or potential, I'll include it in tomorrow's video. Connor says, what wide receivers are you willing to trade CD for? Again, if I can get a top 12 wide receiver of any type, Garrett Wilson, a Kupp, a Nakua, a Garrett Wilson, I'd even be willing to go after Terry McLaurin. Actually, it's kind of a similar value in the long term. But yeah, those prior names that I was mentioning, an A.J. Brown of sorts, those are the kind of guys that I want. I don't want to waste my time going after guys that are not going to be top 12 rest of the way. So any of the stud, theoretically, right? Let's see if I can pull up a list of wide receivers and just kind of flow through them really quickly. So I would trade CeeDee Lamb for Chase, Jefferson, Neighbors, St. Brown, Nico, Kupp, Hill, Garrett Wilson, AJB, Nakua, Debo, London, Flowers. That's probably where I cut it off. Yeah, it's probably where I cut it off. There's a lot of them, though. That's 1 for 1s. Now, again, you could go for a 2 for 1, a 2 for 2, something like that. Should I trade Tracy to get CeeDee Lamb? If you don't need running back depth and you're okay with a 13 to 16 point wide receiver, then yeah, why not? Alrighty. Let's see here. Cam Naples says, I need a long time, need you as a long time subscriber. Would you start Herbert or Tua at quarterback? Would like to mention in also playing Tyreek and Achane. Okay, I understand. Got it. So you're basically just asking Herbert or Tua this week. As of right now, dude, that's a tough one. Again, especially considering I haven't done much quarterback research at the moment. When I say I haven't done much, I literally just compiled stats. I haven't even gone about actually breaking down the matchup and figuring out which of the two I'm going to play. If I'm going to just tell you off the cuff, I'm going to say I'd rather play Tua, and it's probably even more of a designated play because you also are full in on the Dolphins. Let's see here. What does it say? Trade Smitty for CeeDee Lamb? For my CeeDee? No, I don't want Smitty. Not in that scenario. I'd rather just have Lamb. Should I start Taysom Hill or Kincaid? Probably Taysom Hill. Should I start Chase Brown or Tracy in my flex spot full PPR? Probably Tracy's preferred. It says, greetings from China. I have AJ Brown, Higgins, Devontae Adams on start. Okay. My wide receivers are Pearsall and Jamison Williams. Between Ricky Pearsall and Jamison, who can I replace? As of between those two, I'd rather play Jamison Williams in the replacement option. Saul Martinez says, okay, we took care of that. John says, I'm 5-4 in a full PPR. Short have Ricky Pearsall. Short? I don't know if short's the right word, but anyway. Ricky Pearsall, Keon Coleman and Deontay Johnson. DK and T. Higgins are out. Oh, okay, got it. You're short as in like you're missing players. Got it. Have Saquon. Okay, Gibbs. I have 2 running backs and 2 flex spots. What wide receiver should I start? Out of those available, as of right now, I'm probably... Okay, so if Keon Coleman is healthy this week, you play Keon Coleman and Deontay Johnson. Otherwise, you're playing Deontay Johnson and Ricky. So you have to play Deontay Johnson tomorrow because of the uncertainty of Keon Coleman potentially missing with the injury. Bradley Richard says, I'm 7-2 in a 12-team league. I'm Hurts, McCaffrey, Mason, Garendo, Gibbs, Taylor, McBride, Nico, Marvin Harrison, Dell Hopkins, Rome, Brooks, Algier, Pearsall, Sermon. Thoughts on my team and trade ideas? I mean, look, in terms of your team, I don't think you need to have all those running backs handcuffed for Christian McCaffrey, but I get it. I understand. Wait a couple weeks and then drop them because you're not going to need them for the fantasy playoffs, hopefully. Gibbs, Taylor, again, you've got 3 stud running backs. You've got a top 3 quarterback. You've got a top 5 tight end. Marvin and Dell. Actually, at this point, you have Nico, Dell, and Hopkins, who are going to be your starters at wide receiver rest of the way. Am I looking for a trade? I don't mind selling D-Hop high, but you'd have to get a top-tier wide receiver in return. You'd have to get like a top 15 player. If somebody's willing to ship off their Malik Neighbors right now for it, I would make that swap. Otherwise, I don't think you need to move. Let's see here. Rowett says, Andrew, my quarterbacks are Hurts, Daniels. Running backs are K9, Tracy, Irving, Brooks, Algier. Wide receivers are okay. Trade Sutton, Daniels, Tracy for Cup and CD. Or CD, excuse me. So you're going to be trading away 3 players for 1. So theoretically, you'd have Jalen Hurts. You'd have Kenneth Walker. Oh, there we go. YouTube just crashed. Fantastic. Love to see it. As per usual, just the classic YouTube. Let me see the rest of this team. So you'd have Jalen Hurts, Kenneth Walker. You'd giving away Tracy. So you'd have no RB2. No, I wouldn't make this trade. Nope. I'd keep what you have. Absolutely not. I would rather get a lesser wide receiver than Cup and CD or CD Lamb. Specifically Cup. I'd rather get a lesser wide receiver having trading less. Like I'm not trading away Tracy unless I'm getting a running back in return because I do not trust all of the running backs you currently have on roster for the rest of the way. And I don't really trust that you have Olave and Higgins on team and you're trading away I can't. I'm not making that move. Row it. Let's hear. Jocelyn says, what's up, bro? If you got time, I had a question way earlier, probably got drowned in the chat. Yeah, I probably did. To the extent to where if I had to guess Reborn, it's not in the chat. So you're going to have to retype it out. Dak is out for the season. Yeah, that is expected. Is that an actual report? Let me go ahead and let me cross-reference my sources here. I don't really see anything. So if I don't see a report on that in the next couple of seconds, you're getting banned. No, I'm just kidding. Let's see here. Is there any news on Dak? I don't see a single lick of information on Dak, so you're just trolling now, huh? Maybe I need to ban you just to send a message. It's all about sending a message. Continuing on. Chicano Raider, you've been here for a while, so I want to know where you got that information, brother. Justice. Okay, so Jocelyn, where's your question? Let me see here. Jocelyn. Okay, Jocelyn Wilson says, okay, so you're talking to Justice, though. Okay, so then we'll just wait until you type it in the chat. Nom Nom sends in a question, says, happy birthday, Andrew. Thank you very much. I'm 4-5. I'm looking to make an upgrade at running back, but my league is not much for trades. Suggestions? Yeah, if you're going to try to get a running back, I would trade for Bucky Irving right now. That's what I would do. That is a low-key player that people may be sleeping on, but I like their upcoming schedule enough to where, yes, I'd be willing to make that move. That is the kind of player I'd go after. Now, again, if you're going after a higher tier option, which again, because you have McCaffrey, Mixon on roster, it makes sense. But if somebody is willing to take away Bigsby and, I don't know, Khalil Herbert for Bucky Irving, you go for it. Otherwise, it's going to require a lot for you to get a running back, quote unquote, upgrade. Because you have McCaffrey and Mixon, who theoretically are both top 5 rest of season. If you're trying to improve your RB3, that's the way you go about it, going after someone like Irving, theoretically. Kamikaze says, greetings and salutations. Which running back should I package for Puka? Hubbard, Irving, Brian Robinson Jr., Chase Brown. You give them whichever. Okay, so this is what you would probably do. If I was in your position, I'd give away Brian Robinson Jr. and I'd give away Hubbard. That's the way I'd go about it, legitimately. That's the two that I would give. And it's enough compensation to where they probably take it. Andrews or Ingram full PPR this week? It depends on who's playing quarterback for the... Actually, you know what? It probably doesn't. I'd play Ingram there. Jocelyn Wilson. Anything? Nothing? There it is. Just laughing emojis. All right, well, I'm getting laughed at now. Sam says, should I trade Tyrone Tracy and more for Chase Brown if I don't think I need more? Then don't make the trade. Well, if you don't need more, is Chase Brown more valuable than Tracy long term? I mean, it is a better offense. Yeah, I don't mind that. That's fine. Spaghetti for breakfast says half PPR. Should I trade Najee and Goddard in a 7th for Warren and a 1st? The keeper league. Yes. You get a 1st round pick next year. 3 keepers. Yeah, I'll take the 1st for next season. Deontay or Wandell or Zach Ertz in the flex. As of those available options, if it's a full PPR, I'm probably playing Zach Ertz there out of the group. They play against Pittsburgh. I got to actually cross-reference. Again, I haven't done any of my tight end research. So it's either Wandell Robinson or Ertz. Depending on how well Pittsburgh's played against tight ends, is kind of going to be the determining factor there. Ray sends in a question. Thank you, Ray. This will probably be the last question of the night. Again, typically like to have these streams an hour to an hour and a half. We're an hour 26 in. So this will be the final question. I do appreciate y'all coming through. Again, if you guys want your questions answered at a basis outside of the live stream, again, you can check out the Patreon, links down in the description, or you can get my rankings every single Sunday morning via Underdog, or of course get rankings every Thursday and Sunday via the Patreon. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, final question of the night goes to Ray. No more super chats. You send it in, I'm not reading it. Ray says, standard, my team is Josh Allen, Herbert, okay, J.K. Dobbins, Taylor, Devontae Smith. We have London, McBride, BTJ, Chuba Hubbard, Jacobs, Ladd, Olave, Otten. Should I trade Taylor and London for Jamar Chase and Aaron Jones? Really good question. I'd probably take it, yes. Okay, let me think about this for a couple seconds here. Jamar Chase, Jonathan Taylor has an upcoming bye week. So does Drake London. Actually, does London have an upcoming bye week? Let me just see. In terms of the overall context of this, let's see. Does have a week 12 bye. So if you're trying to avoid bye weeks, theoretically, you'd make the trade. Yeah, that's like the Bengals schedule. Do they already pass their bye? Hold up. They haven't even passed their bye. Never mind, it's irrelevant. Okay, so if it's not bye week based, am I taking London and over Taylor over Aaron Jones? Okay, so this is the way I have it. I prefer Taylor over Aaron Jones. I prefer Chase over London. I think the separation between London and Chase is enough to where, yes, I'd probably take Chase. Rest of the way, Ray. Thank you. All right, Jocelyn's the final question. Okay, here we go. Says 10-team PPR. Top guys are Lamar, Hall, Neighbors, Montgomery, Pacheco, Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison, Zay, Drake, London. Okay, I'm 5-4. Am I good here, or should I do something on the trade deadline? The bro also picked up Moody over Aubrey. Okay, good. That works. Okay, so if we're looking at this across the board, Hall. Okay, so Lamar doesn't get replaced. Hall, Neighbors, Montgomery, Pacheco, McBride, Zay. Again, those are really strong players. Drake London, like, no, I don't think you move, Jocelyn. I think you keep it as is. I think you're good to go. Aubrey or Seibert? I'd rather have Seibert rest of the season. Thank you. All right, guys. That's going to cover it. I appreciate y'all coming through. Again, I'll be back tomorrow with the quarterback and tight end rankings video in the afternoon, about noon PST. And then I'll, of course, live stream after tomorrow night's game. I appreciate y'all. Have a great rest of your night. We're queuing the double helix. And until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace.